It almost ended in complete disaster. Let me tell you my Valentine's Day last year. You see, my girlfriend and I are in a long-distance relationship. I live in San Fran, and she lives in New York. Not ideal, right? Well, there's nothing we could do about it. After college, we both landed our dream jobs, but on opposite sides of the country. And neither of us were willing to give up on these fantastic opportunities. But we also weren't willing to give up on our relationship. And we made it work. For the first few months, everything was great. Once a week, we had a Skype date, and we'd even dress up. I always wore a shirt and put gel in my hair, and we'd always cook the same meal, so it felt like we were eating together. Of course, her cooking was definitely better than mine, and I might have ordered takeaway a few times, but she doesn't need to know that. Sometimes it was hard, though. But as they say, absence makes the heart grow fonder, and I was falling more and more in love with her every day. And anyway, after 3 years, my company promised to move me to New York, so we wouldn't be apart forever. And we held on to that thought. It's what got us through all those lonely nights. But there was still one problem. Trust. Yep, that tricky old thing. My job was so demanding, so I often missed her calls. And then when I'd reply, she'd already be in bed and wouldn't message me back until the next day. The time difference killed me, even though it was only a few hours. One night she said she couldn't make our Skype date because of a work event. And then later that night she was tagged in a photo on Facebook with some guy. He had his arm around her, and I freaked out. I called her until she woke up and asked her who he was. I felt so jealous. And suddenly I realized how hard it was to trust her. She said it was just her colleague and that she'd call in the morning. Then she just hung up. I lay awake that whole night feeling sick, thinking she was definitely about to break up with me. In the morning, she called me straight away and apologized and said her colleague was gay and that I had nothing to worry about. I felt so stupid and eventually calmed down and apologized to her too. Valentine's Day was coming up and I suddenly had an idea. I'd fly to New York to surprise her. She'd be so happy. Valentine's Day finally came around and I told her I had a busy day of meetings and that my phone would be off. And then I hopped on the plane and flew to New York. I arrived around 6 p.m. and it had just gotten dark. The taxi dropped me right outside her house and I glanced at the window, afraid she'd see me. I'd bought the biggest bouquet of roses and couldn't wait to see her face. But then I spotted something. There was the shadow of 2 people in her lounge. I quickly checked I had the right address, and this was definitely it. Suddenly, the shadows started kissing, and absolute dread filled my body. I knew she lived alone, so this had to be that guy from the photo. She'd lied to me. I knew it. How could she? I thought about banging on the door or throwing a stone at the window and then confronting her. But I was too hurt to even speak to her. Instead, I went to the nearby corner store and bought some spray paint. When I came back, the lights were off, and I thought they must have gone up to the bedroom. The thought made me sick to my stomach. So across her front door, I spray painted a few nasty words. I wanted everyone to see that she was a cheating liar. I took a quick selfie with the door so that I could prove to my friends that I had the guts to do something like this. I went straight to the airport and took the red-eye flight back to San Fran. I've never been so angry and upset in my life. The next morning, I took a taxi home and was shocked when I saw who was waiting for me inside my house. It was my girlfriend. She was sleeping on my sofa, and she looked so tired. It seemed like she was waiting there for me all night long. I woke her up, and she was so adorable, saying, "Surprise!" and gave me a big kiss. Thank God she knew the passcode for my front door lock, but I was so confused. How could she be here? If I'd just seen her in New York the night before, had she been on the same flight as me? It didn't make sense. I decided not to say anything because I was way too embarrassed. What if it hadn't been her? Instead, we made a breakfast and snuggled up on the sofa to watch some movies. But around lunchtime, she got a call. It was from her brother, and he said someone had vandalized the door of her house and spray-painted obscene stuff all over it. My girlfriend was so angry when she hung up the phone. She said if she ever found out who this crazy person was that would do such a thing, she'd punch him right in the face. I gave her a hug and said I'm sure it couldn't be that bad and tried to comfort her. All the while I was shaking inside. What if she found out it was me who'd done it? We got hungry and my girlfriend took my phone to order some food. And then her face changed. She looked at me in shock. "Jethro!" she screamed. Oh no, I thought. She'd found the photo. Then I explained what had happened, and she was just so touched that I'd fly all the way to surprise her. Instead of getting angry at me, she started laughing. All we could do was laugh because we'd both come up with exactly the same surprise. I'd offer to buy her a new door for Valentine's Day. Can't get more romantic than that, right? Long-distance relationships are not easy at all. But now I learned how to build trust and make our love stronger and happier regardless of the distance. Let me know if you're in a long-distance relationship.